pro-lifers prepare to gather in Washington, D.C. for the 47th annual March for Life. Tens of thousands of pro-lifers are expected to attend the peaceful protest of Roe v. Wade. That is the 1973 decision that legalized abortion nationwide. The March for Life kicks off with a rally on the National Mall, and then pro-lifers march to the Supreme Court. Organizers describe the March for Life as the largest annual human rights demonstration in the world. This year's theme is Life Empowers. Pro-life is pro-woman. And rally speakers include abortion attempt survivor Melissa Ohden, Marjorie Dannenfelser, the president of the Susan B. Anthony List and frequent guest on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, and House Minority Whip Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana. And joining us now from Capitol Hill is the congressman himself, Representative Steve Scalise. Thank you for being here.
Hey, great to be with you.
You are lined up to speak on the March for Life rally stage. What is your message to the marchers this year?
My message is first thanking them for coming to Washington. It's real uplifting when you see so many young kids coming from all around the country. It shows you that the pro-life movement is strong and it's growing among young people, which means it's going to be sustaining. And I want to thank them for being in this fight and talk a little bit about what is at stake, especially when you look at what we're moving right now, trying to get the Born Alive Act up for a vote. This idea that if a baby's born alive outside the womb, in some states, they actually can kill the baby, and they're trying to call that abortion. We know that's murder, and we have a bill by Ann Wagner called the Born Alive Act to prevent that from happening, to protect those babies that are born alive, and we're trying to force a vote on it and talk about some of the other things that are involved in this fight for life and why it's so important that they stay engaged and help convince more people to be like them, to stand up for life.
This March for Life comes 2.5 years, Congressman, after the near-fatal baseball field shooting and your astounding recovery. You have been a longtime pro-life lawmaker, but Congressman, what does marching for life mean to you today?
Well, it means that we know that there's a fight that we're in the middle of and that we have to stand up. We can't just hope that things go the right way. We can't just hope that courts make the right decisions or that lawmakers make the right decisions. We need to pick up our phone. We need to reach out. We need to encourage people all across the country to let them know what's at stake and let them know how to get engaged. And really, when you see these tens of thousands of young people coming, they're going to go back home. They're going to go back home to their states where some of their best friends maybe are not in this fight, maybe are thinking the pro-choice message is something that they might embrace. And we need to let them know why, how to talk to people about joining our movement and what's at stake in this fight.
Speaking of your pro-life views and leadership, in a few months, the Supreme Court will take up a case on whether or not to uphold a pro-life law in your state of Louisiana. You just recently led over 200 members of Congress in signing an amicus brief on the case. What's your message to the High Court?
The message is that the law ought to stand. Louisiana's law says that somebody who performs abortion has to have admitting privilege into a hospital because a lot of times you don't have the most qualified medical professionals. And frankly, states are trying to put more regulations in place that would frankly increase safety for the baby and the mother. And that law ought to stand. It's going to be a big case before the Supreme Court because it'll be the first time that this new court with Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch will be hearing a pro-life case. So obviously, a lot of people are going to be watching. I hope the court rules in favor. The amicus brief that I led the effort on, as you mentioned, got over 200 members of Congress, which is the largest number of signatures for an amicus brief on the pro-life issue. So it shows you even more members of Congress are watching and engaged in this, and that's something I think the court should look at as well. So hopefully Louisiana's law stands because it's not just Louisiana that's at stake here. There are a number of other states that have similar laws or are getting ready to pass similar laws if this stands. So a lot is at stake nationally in this case. And again, first case on the life issue that this new Supreme Court will be hearing.
And Congressman, you mentioned the Born Alive bill. Can you update us? What is the latest with the discharge petition you filed calling for a vote on the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act? Has it been gaining signatures, and do you see any chance for a vote on it?
Yes, we have every single Republican that has signed on to the Born Alive Act discharge petition. And so if you look at this in two steps, one, there's a bill that says we're protecting life. If a baby's born alive, you can't kill it when it's born alive outside the womb. It's murder. And again, there are some states like New York that already have a law allowing the baby to be killed. We want to reverse that. So being for the bill is really important, but Nancy Pelosi is not bringing that bill up for a vote. And so the only mechanism we have in the minority to force the issue is what's called a discharge petition. If 218 members of Congress sign that discharge petition, then the Born Alive Act comes up to the floor for a vote, regardless of what Nancy Pelosi thinks about it. And so it's important not just to say I support the Born Alive Act, but to actually sign the discharge petition. We now have over 200 signatures. We need 15 more. 15 more members of Congress signing on will force that bill to be on the floor for debate and a vote where everybody has to take a position. And so everybody that watches this show, please pick up the phone and call your member of Congress. Ask them, not just have you supported the bill, have you signed the discharge petition? It's a very straightforward yes or no answer. And if they say yes, you can thank them for signing on. But if they say no, ask them why and encourage them to sign the discharge petition. You cannot claim to be pro-life and then not sign that discharge petition. So it's so important we get to 218 signatures, and I think it's still possible.
And finally, Congressman, how does your Catholic faith shape your pro-life views and your support for the March for Life?
My faith is very deep and personal, and frankly, it's at the core of who I am as a person. You know, this idea that you have to check your religion or your faith at the door when you're a policymaker, I don't agree with, because that is part of who you are. It shapes your values. And I went to Catholic school and got that sound religious education to understand why it's so important. And of course, I fell back on my faith. When I was laying on that ball field, shot and almost bleeding out, almost losing my life, I was praying to God and asking him some very specific things. And that faith was important. It helped me get through that day. It helped me to come back. And frankly, God answered those prayers and so many other people that prayed. So faith is who we are. It shapes our values as a country. And I hope that everyone of faith exercises that in their daily lives.
Well, we are grateful for your life, Congressman, and for your time today. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, thank you.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
Marilyn Musgrave is a former U.S. Representative for the state of Colorado and the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List. Welcome back to the show.
It's good to be here.
Congresswoman, first off, can you speak to the role that House Minority Whip Steve Scalise plays on Capitol Hill for the pro-life movement?
Well, first of all, let me say that I remember when Steve Scalise was shot. And the first thing he said when he came back to Congress 3.5 months later, he said his faith in God had only gotten greater. And when he was lying on that field, nearly dying, he thought of his children. And I just know the heart of the man, and I really see in Steve Scalise one of the most amazing pro-life leaders ever. You know, it used to be when I was in Congress, they didn't whip on pro-life bills. I mean, the whip operation, a number of members wouldn't go around and ask people or encourage them to vote in a certain way. Steve Scalise changed all that. Pro-life bills and the passage of those, or the opposition to things that are not pro-life, are very important to him.
And your testimony to his witness is so powerful.
It is so powerful to think of what he's been through and how grateful he is to have this opportunity to stand for life in the United States Congress.
And speaking of his pro-life leadership, the Congressman did update us on the latest when it comes to the Born Alive discharge petition. As a former member of Congress yourself, do you see any chance that there will be a vote on the Born Alive bill?
Well, first of all, let me say I was up in the balcony when that was taking place. And Lloyd Schmucker from Pennsylvania, the congressman, and I looked over the edge and we saw the line of Republican members and a few Democrats that went clear out to the plaza. Nothing like that's ever happened before. The most signatures on the first day with a discharge petition. I hope we'll have a vote. It's at 204. 14 more are needed. The most notable recent signature was from Jeff Van Drew, New Jersey congressman. I believe that he's left the extreme positions of the Democrat Party on abortion. And so he stood with Scalise and others demanding a vote on Born Alive Infant Protection Act.
And as we mentioned with the congressman, he was also able to get over 200 members of Congress to sign on to that amicus brief to the Supreme Court.
A record number of people signing it, bicameral, bipartisan. Amazing.
Speaking now about the March for Life, which we're all excited about, the theme for this year's March for Life is Life Empowers, Pro-Life is Pro-Woman. As a female pro-life leader, as a wife, as a mother, what does this theme mean to you?
Well, I've known all along that pro-lifers were pro-woman. You know, we know now from science that that unborn child is a human being with intrinsic value. And you know, I have women in my generation, personal friends that had abortions. And Catherine, they never saw the first steps. They never went to the first day of school. They never went to the graduation, the weddings. They missed out on so much. Women were lied to. It was a blob of tissue. We know that's not true. And we in the pro-life movement want to be there for women when they're pregnant, when they don't know what to do. And so many people around the country have done that in pregnancy resource centers. You know, they've helped women regardless of their decision. They've opened their arms and helped them. And when we look at the pro-life movement, Jeannie Mancini, we look at Kristen Hawkins with Students for Life, Lila Rose with Live Action, and our own Marjorie Dannenfelser, and we look at these women leading on life. It's so powerful. And in Congress, we have the most amazing women. We have Debbie Lesko, Vicki Hartzler, Ann Wagner, Cindy Hyde-Smith, Marsha Blackburn, Virginia Fox, Liz Cheney, Jackie Walorski, Martha Roby. I mean, I pray I didn't forget anybody. I probably did. But I mean, these women are leading on life.
Congresswoman Marilyn Musgrave, thank you for your pro-life witness and thank you for being here.
It's great to be with you.